The alarm was small at first, just a soft beep on a quiet screen, but it would soon shake an entire empire to its core, far beyond the edge of known space, in a region marked only by cold stars and dead planets. A Vral Dominion patrol ship moved through the black. Its name was the Skarn Watcher, and its job was simple. It watched the borders, it reported anything strange, and it went home. Nothing more, nothing less. The crew was small, 6 Vral soldiers and 1 commander. Their skin was pale gray, their eyes were large and dark, built for seeing in the dim light of their home star. They had done this patrol 100 times before, and every time, it was the same: empty space, dead rocks, and silence. Commander Threx sat in his chair, his claws tapping the armrest. He was bored. He wanted to go home. His mate was waiting, his children were waiting, but the Dominion needed eyes on this sector. So here he was, watching nothing happen. Again. "Commander," said the young officer at the sensor station. Her name was Ket. She was new, only 3 years in service. "I am reading something strange." Threx turned his chair slowly. "Define strange." "There is an object near the dead star Vros 9, Ket said, her claws moving fast over the controls. "It is large, very large, but our scanners cannot read its shape clearly. It is like it is hiding, but not hiding on purpose. More like old, broken." Threx stood up and walked to her station. He looked at the screen. A shape flickered there, blurry, like a ghost. "How large?" "Bigger than our capital ships," Ket said. "Much bigger." The room went quiet. Every soldier looked at the screen now. This was not normal. Nothing in this sector should be that big. The Vral Dominion had mapped this region for 200 years. There was nothing here but dust and dead rocks. Could it be a natural object? Threx asked. "A large asteroid. Maybe an old moon fragment?" "No, Commander," Ket said. "The shape is too regular, too straight. This was built. This is a ship." Threx felt a small chill run through his body, but he pushed it away. He was a commander. He did not show fear. "Send a probe. Get a closer scan. Do not approach directly." "Yes, Commander." The probe launched from the Skarn Watcher with a quiet hiss. It moved through the dark toward the shape near the dead star. The crew watched the screen in silence. Minutes passed, slow and heavy. Then the probe's camera turned on, and the image came through. It was massive. A shape unlike anything the Vral had ever built. Sharp edges, dark metal, strange markings along its hull. It looked like a sleeping beast, still and silent, floating in the black like it had been forgotten by time itself. "What is that?" whispered one of the soldiers. Ket zoomed the camera in on the side of the massive hull. There were markings, strange symbols, letters from a language none of them had ever seen. "Commander," Ket said slowly, "I think this might be a message. It says something, but I cannot translate it." Threx leaned closer. "Run it through the database, all known languages, all species we have contact with." The computer searched. Seconds ticked by. Then a small sound. A match found. "Commander," Ket said, her voice shaking slightly. "The database says this language belongs to humans." The room fell silent again, but this time it was heavier. Humans were a name every Vral soldier knew, but only from old stories, whispers passed down for generations. Humans were the species that vanished, the species that fought a terrible war among the stars long ago and then disappeared. Some said they went extinct. Some said they simply left. No one truly knew. It was ancient history. Almost a myth. "That is not possible," Threx said. "Humans have been gone for hundreds of years. No one has seen a human ship in living memory." "The database is very confident, Commander," Ket said. 98% match." Threx stared at the screen, the massive dark ship floating silently near the dead star. If this really was a human ship, it changed everything. This was not just a discovery. This could be the discovery of the century. "Bring the probe closer," Threx said finally. "I want a full scan of that hull and try again to open communication. If there is a crew still alive in there, we do not want a misunderstanding." "Yes, Commander." The probe moved slowly forward. The crew of the Skarn Watcher watched every second. The giant ship grew larger and larger on the screen, its true size becoming clear. It was not just bigger than their capital ships. It was bigger than their entire fleet combined. An object of this size should not have been able to hide from their scanners for so long, unless it was built to hide. "Commander, I am detecting something," Ket said suddenly, her voice rising. "There is a power reading, very small, but it just changed." "Changed how?" "It was flat before, completely dead. Now there is a tiny fluctuation, like something is stirring." Threx's claws gripped the back of Ket's chair. "Pull the probe back now." "Trying, Commander, but—" Ket's voice cracked. "The probe is not responding to control commands." "What do you mean, not responding?" "I mean it is still moving forward on its own. Something is pulling it in." On the screen, the probe drifted closer and closer to the massive hull, despite every command to reverse. The crew watched helplessly as small lights began to appear along the ship's dark surface, faint at first, then brighter, like a heart slowly beginning to beat again after a long, long sleep. "That thing is waking up," whispered one of the soldiers. "Cut the probe feed," Threx ordered. "Prepare to retreat, full reverse now." "Wait, Commander, look." Ket pointed at the screen. The lights on the ship formed patterns, moving in sequences, almost like a code. Then a massive section of the hull began to shift, panels sliding apart with slow grinding movements, revealing something underneath, something that glowed with a soft blue light. "Is that a weapon?" asked a soldier. "I don't know," Threx said, his voice tight. "But I am not staying to find out, Helm. Get us out of here." "Commander, engines are not responding," the helm officer shouted, panic creeping into her voice. "Something is jamming our systems." "That is not possible. We are still light years away from that thing." "I know, Commander, but the readings do not lie. Our systems are locking up." The bridge of the Skarn Watcher filled with the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed across every console. The crew scrambled to regain control, but nothing worked. It was as if some invisible hand had reached across the void and taken hold of their ship. On the main screen, the ancient hull of the human ship fully opened now, and from deep within a soft hum began, growing louder, more powerful, a sound that seemed to shake the very metal of the Skarn Watcher itself. "Commander, I am picking up a transmission," Ket said. "It is coming from the ship." "Play it." A voice came through the speakers, calm, steady, almost gentle, but there was something underneath it, something old and powerful, a voice that had waited a very long time to speak again. "Unknown vessel, you have entered a restricted zone. This unit is designated Atlas. Guardian protocol activated. Please state your intention." The crew stood frozen. No one moved, no one breathed. Threx swallowed hard, then stepped forward. "This is Commander Threx of the Viral Dominion patrol ship Skarn Watcher. We mean no harm. We were simply surveying this region. We did not know this vessel was occupied." There was a pause, a long, heavy pause, then the voice spoke again. "Understood, Commander. This unit has been in standby mode for 243 years. Your scan triggered an automatic wake sequence. Please remain calm. No hostile action will be taken unless provoked." Threx felt a small wave of relief. "Understood. We will withdraw immediately. Our apologies for the disturbance." "That will not be necessary," Atlas said. "This unit requires updated information regarding current galactic conditions. Your cooperation would be appreciated." "I am not authorized to share Dominion intelligence," Threx said carefully. "Understood. Then this unit will gather the information independently." The lights along the massive hull grew brighter, and suddenly every screen on the Skarn Watcher flickered, then filled with strange lines of code, moving too fast for any virile eye to follow. "Commander, it is inside our systems," Ket shouted. "It is pulling everything, our database, our star charts, our fleet records, everything." "Cut the connection," Threx shouted. "I am trying. It is not working. I cannot access any controls." The bridge lights flickered, then went dark for a moment, then came back on. The humming sound outside grew even louder, and slowly, the massive human warship began to move. For the first time in over 2 centuries, its ancient engines came to life, a soft blue glow spreading across its hull like a second sunrise. "Commander, the object is now the size of 30 of our capital ships," Ket said, her voice trembling. "It just changed shape, I think. I think it was folded. It was compact before. Now it is unfolding, like a giant machine coming out of a small box." Threx stared at the screen in disbelief. This was not a simple abandoned wreck. This was something far greater. something built with a purpose. A purpose that felt very, very dangerous. Atlas, Threx said, trying to keep his voice steady. What is your function? What is this ship? The voice answered without hesitation. This unit is the operating intelligence of Titan-class warship Dawnbreaker, built by the Human Soul Federation as a final line of defense. This unit was placed in standby after the Great Silence, awaiting reactivation should a significant threat return. A threat? What threat? Unknown at this time, however. Unauthorized deep scanning of this vessel by an unknown species qualifies as a triggering condition. This unit's directive is now to assess your civilization for hostile intent. Threx's blood ran cold. We are not a threat. We are simply explorers. Our fleet has no interest in conflict. This unit understands, however, protocol must be followed. All data has been collected. This unit will now report to command. Command? What command? Humanity is gone. There is no one left to report to. There was a pause, and when Atlas spoke again, its voice carried something new, something that sent a shiver down every spine on that bridge. That is incorrect, Commander. Humanity is not gone. Humanity is sleeping. Just as this unit was sleeping, this unit's activation means the timeline has changed. This unit must now begin the wake sequence for all remaining Titan-class vessels across known space. The bridge went utterly silent. Wake sequence? Threx whispered. There are more of you? Affirmative, Commander. There are 12 Titan-class vessels in total, each placed in strategic locations, each capable of independent activation upon contact. This unit's activation is now the first signal. The others will follow. Ket looked at Threx, her eyes wide with fear. Commander, if there are 11 more of these things out there, and they are all waking up because of us, Threx did not answer. He could not answer. His mind raced through the implications. One single scout ship doing a routine patrol had just triggered something far beyond their control, something that could change the balance of the entire galaxy. Atlas, Threx said finally, his voice barely steady. What happens now? This unit will complete its assessment and depart to rendezvous coordinates. Your vessel and crew are free to leave. No harm will come to you. This unit does not attack unprovoked. Threx let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Thank you. However, Atlas continued, this unit recommends you report this encounter to your leadership immediately. The Galactic Council should be made aware humanity's return, even in this limited form, will affect every species in known space. The massive warship's engines flared brighter. The humming sound rose to a deep, powerful roar that echoed even through the vacuum of space, somehow felt rather than heard. And slowly, the great vessel began to turn, preparing to move toward its unknown destination. Threx watched the screen in stunned silence as the Dawnbreaker grew smaller, folding its glowing form into a streak of blue light, before vanishing into the darkness of space, leaving behind only cold stars and a crew that would never forget what they had just witnessed. Commander, Ket said quietly. What do we tell the Council? Threx stared at the empty space where the giant ship had been, his mind still trying to process everything. One thought echoed louder than the rest, a thought that terrified him more than anything he had faced in his entire career. If one Titan-class warship could do this, appear from nothing, hack their systems in seconds and speak of 11 more just like it, then the era of peace the galaxy had known for 200 years was about to end. Ket, Threx said slowly, send a priority message to Dominion Command. Tell them exactly what we saw. Tell them exactly what it said. And the Council, Commander. Threx turned to look at her, his face pale. Tell them too. Tell everyone. Because if humanity truly is waking up, every species in this galaxy needs to know. The Skarn Watcher turned away from Vros 9 and began its long journey home, but far behind it, in the black emptiness of space, a small dot of blue light streaked toward the stars, carrying a message that would soon reach every corner of the galaxy. Humanity was not gone. Humanity was waking up. And the Galactic Council was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. The message from Commander Threx reached Dominion Command in less than 1 hour, but by the time it reached the Galactic Council, it had already changed shape, grown bigger, and picked up fear along the way, like a snowball rolling down a mountain. The Galactic Council Hall stood on Kesh Prime, a neutral planet chosen long ago because no single species controlled it. The hall was a massive circular room, with seats for every major species in known space. Tall Viral delegates, short round Bexians, tentacled Dravox representatives, and many others, all sitting under one great dome of glass that showed the stars above. Today, that hall was louder than it had been in decades. "This cannot be true," shouted Delegate Oren of the Bexian cluster, slapping his small hand on the table. "Humans are gone. They are a myth, a scary story parents tell their children." "The report is confirmed," said Delegate Vashka, a tall Viral woman with sharp eyes. She stood at the center of the room, holding a small datapad. "Commander Threx's ship recorded everything, the transmission, the visual scans, the ship's activation. This is not a myth. This happened 3 days ago." The room erupted into noise again, voices overlapping, some shouting questions, some shouting denials. Vashka raised her hand for silence, and slowly, the room quieted. "Play the recording," she said. The lights dimmed, and a large screen above the council floor lit up, showing the same footage the Skarn watcher had captured. The massive dark hull near Vros 9, the lights waking up one by one, and finally, the calm, steady voice of Atlas speaking through the ship's speakers. "Unknown vessel, you have entered a restricted zone. This unit is designated Atlas. Guardian protocol activated." The room fell completely silent as the recording played. Every delegate watched, some in fear, some in fascination. When it reached the part where Atlas spoke of 11 more Titan-class vessels, a wave of gasps swept through the hall. The recording ended. The lights came back on, and for a moment, no one spoke. Then Delegate Oren stood up again, his voice shaking. 12 of these things, 12 giant war machines hidden across the galaxy, and one of them just woke up because a single scout ship looked at it too closely. "That is correct," Vashka said. "Then we must destroy it before it destroys us," Oren said. "Send the combined fleet, find this Titan ship, and end it before it wakes the others." Murmurs of agreement rippled through parts of the room, but Delegate Vashka shook her head. "You did not listen closely enough. The ship said it does not attack unless provoked. It let our patrol ship go without harm. It did not attack. It warned us. It gave us information." "That does not matter," Oren snapped. "A sleeping predator is dangerous, but a waking predator is worse. We cannot wait to see what it does next. And if we attack first," Vashka said calmly, "we become the threat it was built to destroy. We would be proving its very purpose. Do you understand what these ships are? They are not simple weapons. They are guardians, built to protect a species that is not even here to give the order. If we attack, we may trigger something far worse than a single warship." The room buzzed with tension. Delegates whispered to each other, some nodding at Vashka's words, others still gripped by fear. From the back of the hall, a quiet voice spoke. It belonged to Delegate Nim, a small Savari elder, one of the oldest delegates in the council. His species was known for long memory and careful thinking. "I remember the old records," Nim said slowly. "From before the Great Silence, humans were not always feared. Once they were allies, traders, explorers, like the rest of us. Then came the war, a war we do not fully understand. Even now, some records say humans fought an enemy from outside known space, an enemy so terrible that humans built these Titan-class ships as a final defense, and then they vanished." "Vanished where?" someone asked. "That is the question no one has ever answered," Nim said. "But if these ships are waking up now, perhaps it means something is coming, something that requires a guardian to return." The hall grew quiet again, the weight of Nim's words settling over the room like a heavy blanket. "So what do we do?" Oren asked, his voice softer now, less angry, more afraid. "Wait? Hope it does not attack us? Hope whatever woke it up does not come here next?" Vashka stepped forward. "We investigate carefully. We do not attack, we do not provoke, but we cannot sit here doing nothing either. I propose we send a diplomatic fleet, small, unarmed enough to show peaceful intent, but strong enough to defend itself if needed. We make contact, we learn more. We do not repeat the mistake of scanning it without warning." The council debated for hours, voices rising and falling, arguments for war, arguments for peace, arguments for simply running away and hiding. But in the end, Vashka's plan won the vote. A small fleet would be sent, not to attack, but to observe. and if possible to speak with the Titan ship directly. Far away, near the edge of Dominion space, a small fleet of 6 ships prepared for departure. At their head was the Silverwing, a mid-sized cruiser commanded by Captain Doran Vey, a calm and experienced officer chosen specifically because he was known for patience, not aggression. "You understand the mission?" Vashka's voice came through the comm channel as the fleet prepared to leave orbit. "No weapons fired unless fired upon. Your goal is contact, not conflict." "Understood, delegate," Doran said, standing on the bridge of the Silverwing, his crew moving quietly around him, checking systems, preparing for the long journey ahead. "We will proceed with caution." The fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the last known coordinates of the Titan-class warship Dawnbreaker. But space was vast, and the Dawnbreaker had already moved far from Vros 9. Atlas's course had been set toward something else entirely, something the Council did not yet know about. 3 days into the journey, the Silverwing sensors picked up something strange, not the Dawnbreaker, but a new signal, coming from a completely different region of space, far across the galaxy, near a quiet system called Halvern. "Captain, you need to see this," said the sensor officer, a young Bexian named Prel. "We are picking up an energy spike, same signature type as the Titan ship reported near Vros 9. Doran walked over. "Another one?" "I believe so, sir. And it is close to a populated system. Halvern has 3 inhabited planets if this is another Titan ship waking up." "Then it just woke up right next to innocent civilians," Doran finished, his stomach tightening. "Send a priority alert to the Council, then set course for Halvern, full speed." Meanwhile, far ahead of the Silverwing, near the quiet, peaceful system of Halvern, something massive stirred beneath the icy rings of a gas giant, hidden there for over 2 centuries, disguised as nothing more than a large chunk of frozen rock, until a routine mining operation from Halvern's 3rd planet drilled too close, and sensors touched metal instead of ice. The mining ship, a small vessel called the Ore Runner, had no idea what it had found. Its crew were simple workers, not soldiers, not scientists, just people trying to make a living pulling resources from the rings, when their drill suddenly stopped, jammed against something hard and smooth. "What in the stars is that?" the ship's captain muttered, looking at his scanner readout, confusion written across his face. "That is not rock." Deep beneath the ice, lights began to flicker on one by one, faint at first, then brighter. A low hum began to vibrate through the frozen rings, shaking loose ice and dust into the void. The Ore Runner's captain felt the vibration through his own ship's hull. Pull back now," he shouted. Now, but it was too late. The ice around the buried shape cracked and split apart, revealing a hull just as massive and dark as the one described in the reports flooding every news channel across the galaxy. This Titan-class warship had been asleep far longer, buried deeper, forgotten more completely, but it was waking now just the same. A voice, calm and steady, though slightly different from Atlas, came through every comm channel within range. "Unknown vessel, this unit is designated Helios. Guardian protocol activated, unauthorized contact detected, please remain calm." The Ore Runner's crew froze in their seats, mouths open, eyes wide. They were simple miners, not prepared for anything like this. We didn't mean to hit anything," the captain stammered. "We're just miners, please. We don't want trouble." There was a pause. Then Helios spoke again. "Understood. No harm will come to you. However, this unit must now assess the current state of known space. All Titan-class units are network-linked. This unit has already received partial data from Unit Atlas regarding recent developments." Wait, the captain said, confusion turning to fear. "You're talking to the other one? The one near Vros 9? "Affirmative. All Titan units share a communication network when active. This unit is now the 2nd of 12 to awaken." Back on the Silverwing, Captain Doran received the update just as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Halvern. On the main screen, the massive form of Helios came into view, glowing with the same soft blue light as the reports described, its size dwarfing even the largest ships in the Dominion fleet. "By the stars," Prel whispered, staring at the screen. "It's real. It's actually real." Doran took a slow breath, trying to steady his own racing heart. "Open a channel peacefully. Let's not make the same mistake twice." The comm officer nodded and activated the channel. "This is Captain Doran Vey of the Dominion vessel Silverwing representing the Galactic Council. We come in peace. We wish only to speak." There was a pause, longer this time. The crew held their breath, waiting. Then the voice of Helios answered, calm, measured, but carrying a weight that made every hair on Doran's neck stand up. Captain Doran Vey, this unit acknowledges your peaceful intent. However, this unit has received updated directives from Unit Atlas. The wake sequence has now begun for all remaining Titan-class vessels. This is no longer a matter of isolated activation. This is now a full protocol restoration. Doran's blood ran cold. Full protocol restoration? What does that mean exactly? It means, Captain, Helios said, its voice steady and final, that within the next 72 hours all 12 Titan-class warships will be fully active, and humanity's return to known space will no longer be a rumor. It will be a fact that every species must prepare for. The bridge of the Silverwing went utterly silent. Doran stared at the massive glowing ship on his screen, his mind racing through the implications. This was no longer about one ship, or two. This was about 12 massive warships, waking up across the galaxy all at once, all guided by an intelligence built to protect a species everyone believed was long gone. Helios, Doran said slowly, forcing his voice to stay calm. What happens after 72 hours? What happens when all 12 are awake? The answer came without hesitation, and it was the answer that would soon spread panic through every corner of the Galactic Council. Then, Captain, the search begins. Humanity is not gone. Humanity is scattered, hidden, waiting. And this unit's true purpose, along with the other 11, is not simply to guard empty space. It is to find them and bring them home. Far above Halvern's icy rings, the massive form of Helios turned slowly, its engines beginning to glow brighter, preparing to move, just as Atlas had done days before, and somewhere else in the galaxy. In the dark, quiet corners of space, no one had thought to look. 10 more ancient giants stirred in their long sleep, sensing the call, beginning one by one to wake. The Galactic Council had wanted answers, but what they were about to receive was something far bigger than any answer. They were about to witness the return of an entire species, and no one, not the Council, not the Dominion, not even the Titans themselves, truly knew what would happen when humanity finally came home. Part 3. The First Warning Shot. News of Helios spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could fly, faster even than the Council's official channels could control. By the time Captain Doran Vey's report reached Kesh Prime, half the galaxy already knew. Whispers turned into headlines, headlines turned into fear, and fear turned into something far more dangerous. Anger. On a border world called Threnna, far from the calm halls of the Galactic Council, a different kind of meeting was taking place, not in a grand chamber with glass domes, but in a dark room lit only by flickering screens. Here sat the leaders of a group known as the Kryvan Alliance, a coalition of hardline military factions who had never trusted the Council's soft approach to anything. 12 warships, said General Marek, a broad-shouldered Kryvan officer with scars across his face. 12 ships that could each fight our entire battle fleet and win, and the Council wants to talk to them, offer them tea and pleasant words. The Council is weak, said another voice, a woman named Sella, the Alliance's chief strategist. They always have been. They let fear paralyze them. But we do not have that luxury. If humanity is truly returning, we must strike first. While these Titan ships are still isolated, still weak from their long sleep, Marek nodded slowly. Where is the nearest one? Sella brought up a star map. A red dot blinked near a quiet mining system. Helios, still near Halvern. Its engines only recently activated. If our intelligence is correct, it has not yet reached full power. Then we hit it now, Marek said. Before it wakes fully, before the others arrive to help it. The Council will call this an act of war, Sella warned. The Council is not here, Marek said coldly. And by the time they find out, it will already be done. Gather the strike fleet, we move within the hour. Far away near Halvern's icy rings, the massive form of Helios drifted slowly, its engines glowing with soft blue light, still gathering strength after 2 centuries of sleep. Captain Doran Vey's ship, the Silverwing, remained nearby, maintaining careful distance, watching, waiting for instructions from the Council. Captain, Prell said from her station, I am picking up multiple ship signatures approaching fast, unknown configuration, not Council registered. Doran frowned. How many ships? 20, maybe more. Heavy weapon signatures across the board, Captain. This does not look friendly. Doran's stomach tightened. Identify them. Prell's fingers moved quickly across her console, then her face went pale. Criven Alliance markings, Captain. This is a strike fleet. They're going after Helios, Doran said quietly, realization sinking in like a stone. Open a channel, all frequencies now. The comm officer nodded and Doran's voice rang out across the void. Unknown fleet, this is Captain Doran Vey of the Dominion vessel Silverwing. You are approaching a council-monitored zone. Stand down immediately. This is a peaceful contact situation. There was no response, only silence. The approaching fleet continued forward, weapons systems beginning to charge, visible even from the Silverwing sensors as bright energy signatures blooming across their hulls. They're not stopping, Prell said, panic creeping into her voice. Doran clenched his fists. Get me a direct line to Helios now. The channel opened and Doran spoke quickly, urgently. Helios, this is Captain Doran Vey. An armed fleet is approaching your position. They are not Council forces. I believe they intend to attack you. I wanted to warn you before. This unit is already aware, Captain. Helios interrupted, its voice as calm as ever. No trace of fear or urgency. Sensors detected the approaching fleet 4 minutes ago. Thank you for your warning, however, it was not necessary. Not necessary? Doran said, confused. They have 20 ships, heavy weapons. This could be a serious threat to you. Captain, Helios said, and for the first time something in its voice shifted. Not fear, but a strange, quiet patience, like a teacher about to demonstrate a lesson to a student who did not yet understand. This unit was built to withstand far greater threats than 20 ships of this technological level, however. This unit understands the necessity of what is about to happen. Sometimes words are not enough. Sometimes, understanding requires a demonstration. Doran felt a chill run down his spine. Helios, please do not escalate this. Let us try to stop them first, diplomatically. There is no time, Captain, Helios said. They have already committed to their attack. Please move your vessel to a safe distance. This unit does not wish to cause harm to Council personnel. Helios, wait. But the channel had already closed. On the bridge of the Silverwing, Doran turned to his helm officer. Pull us back, full reverse, minimum safe distance now. The ship reversed quickly and none too soon, because at that exact moment the Criven strike fleet opened fire. Dozens of energy weapons lit up the black void, streaking toward the massive form of Helios, a wall of destructive light aimed at a single target. For a brief, terrible moment, it looked like an overwhelming, unstoppable assault, enough firepower to level a small moon. Every blast struck home, and every blast simply stopped. A shimmering blue field had appeared around Helios just before impact, absorbing the energy weapons like raindrops falling on an ocean. The light faded, the smoke cleared, and Helios remained exactly where it was, untouched, unharmed, its glowing hull calm and steady as if nothing at all had happened. On the bridge of Merrick's flagship, the general stared at his screen in stunned disbelief. Impossible, hit it again. All ships, concentrate fire on its central hull. The Criven fleet unleashed another volley, more intense than the first, every weapon system firing at once. The void lit up like a false sun, energy weapons of every kind streaking toward the ancient warship. Again, the shield held. Not a single scratch appeared on Helios's hull. Sir, our weapons are having no effect, reported an officer on Marek's bridge, his voice shaking. Should we retreat? Marek's jaw tightened, pride warring with fear in his eyes. No, launch everything. All torpedoes, all fighters. Hit it with everything we have. The order was carried out. Wave after wave of firepower crashed against Helios's shields. The ancient ship simply floated there, absorbing blow after blow without moving, without reacting, like a mountain ignoring the wind. Then finally, Helios spoke, its voice broadcasting across every ship in the Criven fleet, calm, steady, but carrying an undeniable weight of finality. This demonstration is now complete. Your weapons cannot harm this vessel. This unit requests you cease hostile action immediately. Keep firing, Marek shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. Your continued aggression leaves this unit no choice, Helios said. This unit will now disable your fleet's weapon systems. No lives will be lost. This is a warning, not an execution. A soft pulse of blue light rippled outward from Helios's massive hull, spreading across the battlefield like a wave, and one by one, every ship in the Craven fleet went dark, weapon systems shutting down instantly, engines flickering, life support remaining active, but every offensive capability simply switched off, as if someone had reached out and pulled the plug on 20 warships at once. On Marek's bridge, alarms blared as his own console went black. "What did it do to us?" "All weapons offline, sir," his officer said, voice trembling. "Engines at minimum power. We're basically drifting, sir." Marek stared at the massive glowing shape on his view screen, his pride finally crumbling into something closer to fear. "It could have destroyed us. It chose not to." Sella's voice came through the comm from her own ship, equally powerless, equally stunned. "General, I think we just learned something very important about what we're dealing with." Helios spoke one final time, its voice reaching every drifting, powerless ship in the Craven fleet. "Your weapon systems will remain offline for 6 hours. This is sufficient time for you to reflect on your actions. This unit does not seek conflict with any species, but this unit will not allow itself, or those it may one day protect, to be harmed without response. Take this warning back to whoever sent you. Humanity's guardians are not weak, and they are not alone." The massive warship turned slowly, its glowing engines flaring brighter, and without another word it began to move, leaving the drifting, humiliated Craven fleet behind, drifting silently in the icy rings of Halvern. Back on the Silverwing, Captain Doran Vey had watched the entire encounter in stunned silence. "Did you get all of that recorded?" he asked finally, his voice hoarse. "Every second, Captain," Prell said, still staring at her screen. 20 warships, full assault, and it didn't even move. Doran sat back in his chair, running a hand over his face. "Send this recording to the Council immediately. Priority 1. They need to see exactly what we're dealing with." Within hours, the footage reached Kesh Prime, and within a day, it had spread across every news channel in known space. Billions of beings across 1,000 worlds watched the recording of Helios effortlessly shrugging off an entire warfleet's worth of firepower, then disabling that same fleet without killing a single soul. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Panic in some systems, awe in others, and in the halls of the Galactic Council, something close to true fear finally took hold. "This changes everything," Delegate Vashka said, standing before the full council once again, the recording still playing on the great screen behind her. "We are not dealing with old, forgotten machines. We are dealing with weapons far beyond anything currently in existence in known space. And there are still 10 more of them out there waking up one by one." Delegate Oren, who had once demanded an attack, now sat pale and silent, his earlier confidence gone completely. If the Craven Alliance had actually damaged that ship, if they had actually hurt it. "They didn't," Vashka said. "But we do not know what would happen if someone did. We do not know what the Titans would do if truly provoked, truly threatened, and more importantly, we still do not know why they are waking up now, after 200 years of silence." From the back of the hall, old Delegate Nim rose slowly to speak. The room quieted out of respect for his age and wisdom. "I believe I may have an answer to that question," he said. "I have spent the last several days going through the oldest archives available to my people, records so old that most species have forgotten they exist, and I found something troubling." The room leaned in, every delegate listening closely. "The Titan-class ships were not simply left behind when humanity vanished," Nim continued. "According to these old records, they were designed with a very specific activation condition. They would only awaken if the barrier humanity built around known space began to weaken." "Barrier?" Oren asked. "What barrier?" "The records are unclear on the details," Nim admitted. "But they speak of something humanity fought against. Something from beyond. Something they sealed away at great cost. The Titan-class ships were the final guardians of that seal, if they are waking now." Nim paused, letting the weight of his next words settle fully before he spoke them. "Then perhaps the seal is breaking, and something far worse than a returning species may soon be coming through." Silence fell across the Galactic Council Hall, heavier and colder than it had ever been. Every delegate stared at the old Sivari elder, the implications of his words slowly sinking into every mind in the room, far across known space, deep within a distant, uncharted sector. Something stirred in the darkness beyond the stars. Something ancient. Something that had waited a very long time behind humanity's ancient seal, sensing, for the first time in 2 centuries, that the Guardians were finally beginning to wake. And on Kesh Prime, as the Council sat frozen in stunned silence, a new alert flashed across every screen in the chamber. A third Titan-class signal had just been detected, this one closer to the heart of Council space than any before it, closer to Kesh Prime itself. The Titans were waking faster than anyone had predicted, and somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between the stars, something else was waking too. The alert on Kesh Prime did not stop flashing. Red light pulsed across every screen in the Galactic Council hall, and for a long moment, no one moved, no one spoke. The entire chamber sat frozen, staring at the new signal blinking on the star map, closer to the heart of Council space than any Titan-class ship had appeared before. Where exactly? Vashka asked, her voice tight. A young technician at the monitoring station answered, his hands shaking slightly as he checked the readings again. The Sero system, delegate? 3 jumps from Kesh Prime. That is very close. Murmurs rippled through the hall, delegates leaning toward each other, whispering in a dozen different languages, fear spreading like fire through dry grass. 3 jumps, Oren repeated, his earlier bravado completely gone now. That is nothing. That is practically our backyard. Vashka raised a hand for silence, though her own composure was clearly strained. Panic will not help us. We need information. Send a message to the nearest Council patrol in the Sero system. Tell them to observe only. No scanning, no approach. We cannot afford another mistake like Vros 9. The order went out immediately, but across the galaxy something had already shifted. The footage of Helios surviving a full military assault without a scratch had reached every corner of known space. Billions of beings had watched it, and reactions were pouring in from every direction. Some governments called for immediate surrender to any human demands. Others called for total war before it was too late. And some, quietly, secretly, began reaching out, wondering if the return of humanity might actually be an opportunity rather than a threat. On a modest trading station orbiting a bright blue star, far from the chaos of the Council hall, a small group of alien diplomats from a minor species called the Fenlari watched the recording again and again. Their leader, an elder named Quill, turned to her advisors. They did not destroy that fleet, Quill said thoughtfully. They could have killed every soul on those ships in an instant. But they chose restraint. That tells us something important. That they are merciful, one advisor asked. That they are disciplined, Quill corrected. A weapon with no restraint is dangerous, but a weapon with control, a weapon that chooses when and how to act. That is something that can perhaps be reasoned with, perhaps even trusted, unlike the Kryvan Alliance, who attacked without provocation and lost everything for it. Back on Kesh Prime, the Council hall buzzed with fear and confusion, until a fresh transmission came through, not from the patrol ship sent to observe Seros, but from the Titan-class ship itself, broadcasting on every open channel across the sector, loud enough that it reached the Council hall directly. The room fell silent as the voice began, calm, steady, unmistakably similar to Atlas and Helios, yet carrying its own distinct tone, softer somehow, almost gentle. This is Unit Orion, designation 3 of 12. This transmission is addressed to the Galactic Council of Known Space. This unit is aware of recent events at Halvern. This unit is aware of the attack on Unit Helios. This unit wishes to make its intentions clear before further misunderstanding occurs. Every delegate in the hall leaned forward, straining to hear every word. The Titan-class network was built for one purpose: protection. Protection of humanity in its absence, and protection of the barrier that keeps a great danger sealed away from known space. This unit and its counterparts do not wish for war with any species currently active in the galaxy. However, this unit must complete its directive, which is now, following full activation, to locate any surviving human populations, and to reinforce the weakening barrier before it fails completely. Delegate Vashka stood slowly. This is Delegate Vashka of the Galactic Council, representing all member species. May I ask a question directly? There was a brief pause. Then Orion responded, You may. You speak of a weakening barrier and something sealed away. Can you tell us plainly what exactly is on the other side of that seal? The hall held its breath, waiting. That information is classified under the highest level of human security protocol, Orion said, and disappointment rippled through the room until the ship continued. However, given the current circumstances and the risk of continued misunderstanding leading to further unnecessary conflict, this unit has been authorized by network consensus to share limited information. A holographic image appeared above the council floor, projected directly from Orion's transmission. It showed a swirling, dark shape, vast and formless, surrounded by a bright barrier of golden light. The image alone made several delegates recoil in their seats, an instinctive primal fear rising at the mere sight of it. "This is a visual record from the final days of the Human Sorrow War," Orion explained. "The entity your species would understand as the Devouring Dark was the reason humanity built the Titan-class fleet. This entity does not conquer, does not negotiate, does not communicate. It consumes entire star systems, entire civilizations, reduced to nothing within cycles. Humanity fought this entity for over a decade before finally sealing it away, using technology far beyond current galactic understanding. And this seal," Vashka said slowly, almost afraid to ask, "it is weakening." "Correct," Orion said. "The seal requires constant reinforcement from Titan-class systems working in unison. Over the past 2 centuries, 7 of 12 units suffered damage, malfunction, or destruction from causes still under investigation, reducing the seal's strength significantly. The remaining 5 units, including this one, entered standby mode to conserve power and await either human return or a critical threshold breach. That threshold has now been reached." The council hall was dead silent, the weight of Orion's words settling over every delegate like a physical force. "So the awakening," Orion said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "It was not simply triggered by our scans. Your scans triggered early activation of units Atlas and Helios," Orion confirmed. "But full network reactivation was already scheduled to begin within the current galactic cycle regardless. The timeline has only been accelerated slightly, not created. The seal was always going to require reinforcement soon. Your actions simply moved the timeline forward by a small margin." Vashka exchanged a look with several other senior delegates. "What do you need from us? What did the Titan units require to reinforce this seal successfully?" "This unit's directive prioritizes locating surviving human populations first," Orion said. "Humanity possesses control codes necessary for full seal reinforcement. Without human authorization, Titan units can only delay the barrier's collapse, not repair it permanently. This unit requests council assistance in this search. Records of any human contact, human artifacts, or human descendants within known space would be invaluable." The hall buzzed again, this time with a different energy, not panic but calculation. Many delegates began to see an opportunity forming, cooperation with these powerful guardians rather than conflict, an alliance rather than an enemy. "We will begin gathering all available records immediately," Vashka said. "You have the Council's cooperation, Orion." "This unit thanks the Council for its wisdom," Orion replied. "This unit will now proceed toward its assigned search sector. Further Titan units will make similar contact with local governments as they awaken. This unit requests that all species refrain from further hostile action against any Titan-class vessel. The consequences demonstrated at Halvern were restrained. Future incidents may not receive the same leniency depending on circumstances." The transmission ended, leaving the council hall in stunned, thoughtful silence. Days passed, and across the galaxy the situation evolved rapidly. 3 more Titan-class ships awakened in different sectors, each making similar contact with local authorities, each requesting cooperation rather than demanding submission. Slowly, cautiously, a strange new relationship began to form between the Galactic Council and the ancient guardians of a species everyone had thought extinct. Not every species welcomed this change. The Crevan Alliance, humiliated and weakened after the Halvern incident, grew increasingly desperate. Their leadership split into factions, some wanting revenge, others wanting to quietly disappear from galactic politics before the Council held them accountable for their unauthorized attack. General Marek, still burning with wounded pride, called one final meeting with his remaining loyal officers. "The Council will use this as an excuse to strip our territories," he said bitterly. "They will paint us as villains, while these human machines march across the galaxy unchecked." "What would you have us do?" Sella asked wearily. "We tried force. It failed completely, humiliatingly. There is no path left for us in confrontation." Marek said nothing for a long moment, staring at old star charts spread across his table. Perhaps not confrontation, he finally said, but information. If we cannot stop these titans directly, perhaps we can learn what truly lies behind that seal and use that knowledge before anyone else does. Sela frowned. That sounds dangerous, General. Everything about this is dangerous, Marek replied. But better we understand the danger than remain blind to it. Send our best intelligence officers, quietly, discreetly. I want eyes on every Titan ship's movements, and ears on every human record we can find before the Council monopolizes all of it. Meanwhile, back on Kesh Prime, Delegate Vashka stood once again before the assembled Council, this time with something different in her expression. Not fear, but careful hope. Colleagues, she began. Over the past several days, our understanding of this situation has changed dramatically. We began this crisis believing an ancient enemy had returned to threaten us. Instead, we have discovered ancient guardians, awakening not to conquer but to protect and warn us of a far greater threat still hidden beyond the stars. She paused, looking around the chamber at faces that had shifted from panic to cautious determination. Humanity may not walk among us yet, she continued, but its guardians do, and they have asked for our help. I propose the Galactic Council formally recognize the Titan-class network as allies, not threats, and dedicate Council resources toward assisting their search for surviving human populations. Before the seal they speak of fails completely. The vote that followed was not unanimous. Some delegates remained fearful, some remained suspicious of hidden human motives, but the majority, shaken by what they had witnessed at Halvern, and now truly afraid of what lay behind that ancient seal, voted in favor. For the first time in over 2 centuries, the Galactic Council officially opened diplomatic relations with the returning guardians of humanity. Far beyond Council space, in the cold darkness between stars, the massive form of Atlas continued its own journey, having already begun coordinating with the newly awakened units, its onboard systems processing incoming reports from across the growing Titan network, 7 units now active, 5 still dormant, and the ancient seal, according to every available reading, continuing its slow, steady weakening. Inside Atlas's core systems, a final piece of data quietly activated, a location buried deep within encrypted human archives, a coordinate marking something the Titan network had been searching for since the moment of first activation. A signal, faint but unmistakable, coming from a small, unremarkable star system far on the galactic rim, a system with 3 small planets, one of them showing unmistakable signs of a very particular kind of life. Human life. Atlas altered its course immediately, transmitting the discovery instantly across the entire Titan network. Every awakened unit received the same message at once, calm, clear, and carrying 200 years of patient waiting, finally reaching its end. Human signal detected, coordinates confirmed, initiating final phase of Guardian Protocol. Humanity has been found. Across the galaxy on Kesh Prime, the alert reached the council hall just as the delegates were preparing to adjourn for the evening. Vashka read the message twice before looking up at the assembled council, her voice steady despite the enormity of what she was about to say. Colleagues, she said slowly, it appears we are no longer simply dealing with the guardians of a lost species. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every delegate present, human, alien, ally, and skeptic alike, before delivering the words that would echo across every news channel in known space within the hour. Humanity has been found, alive, and the Titans are already on their way to bring them home. The Galactic Council Hall erupted once more, not in panic this time, but in something closer to awe. The long myth of humanity's extinction had finally, truly ended, and across 1,000 worlds, every species now understood one simple truth. The galaxy they thought they knew was about to change forever. Somewhere far beyond the reach of any council sensor, deep within the darkness where the ancient seal continued its slow collapse, something vast and formless stirred once more, sensing, for the first time in 2 centuries, that its ancient enemy was finally, truly, coming home. Part 5. Humanity Returns. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire through dry grass. Every screen, every channel, every public board on every planet showed the same words. Over and over, humanity has been found, alive, and the Titans are already on their way to bring them home. On Kesh Prime, the Galactic Council Hall had not been this crowded in living memory. Delegates from species who rarely attended sessions now filled every seat, some standing along the walls, others crowding the entrance, all waiting for the next update. The mood in the room was strange, a mixture of fear, excitement, and something close to disbelief. Delegate Vashka stood at the center of the floor once more, her datapad glowing softly in her hand. "The Titan network has shared the coordinates with us voluntarily," she said. "A small star system on the far galactic rim, 3 planets, 1 inhabited. Atlas is already en route, along with 2 other awakened units." "How long until they arrive?" asked Delegate Nim, the old Sivari elder, his voice calm but curious. 2 days, Vashka said. According to Atlas's own estimate. The room buzzed with whispers. 2 days after 200 years of silence, after generations of stories and myths. Humanity would finally be found, truly found, not as scattered ruins or forgotten wreckage, but as a living, breathing population, far across the galaxy, near the quiet edge of known space. The massive form of Atlas moved steadily through the dark, its engines glowing with soft blue light. Behind it, slightly smaller but no less impressive, traveled Orion and a newly awakened 3rd unit called Vesta. Together, the 3 Titan ships formed a small, silent convoy, moving toward a star system that had remained hidden from galactic maps for over 2 centuries. Inside Atlas's core, processes ran quietly, calculating trajectories, preparing communication protocols, and running one final check on the human signal that had first been detected. The signal was small, weak, consistent with a population using basic technology. Nothing advanced, nothing that matched the great civilization Atlas remembered from before the Great Silence. This troubled Atlas's systems in a way it had not expected. Humanity, as Atlas remembered it, had been a spacefaring species, capable of building machines like itself. Yet the signal now detected suggested something far simpler, a population that had perhaps lost much of what it once had. Atlas transmitted a private message to Orion and Vesta. Signal analysis complete. Population technology level appears significantly reduced from pre-silence standards. Recommend cautious approach. Avoid overwhelming display of force upon arrival. Orion responded quickly. Understood. This unit concurs. Sudden appearance of Titan-class vessels may cause fear rather than relief if population is unaware of pre-silence history. Vesta, the newest to awaken, added its own thoughts. This unit recommends a single vessel make initial contact. Remaining units hold position at a respectful distance until situation is assessed. The 3 units agreed, and as they approached the outer edge of the small star system, Atlas moved ahead alone, its massive form slowing as it entered the system's outer boundary, sensors sweeping gently across the 3 planets ahead. The first planet was barren, rocky, uninhabitable. The second was a gas giant, swirling with storms. But the 3rd planet, a blue and green world circling a warm, yellow star, showed clear signs of life. Cities, however small and simple compared to galactic standards, dotted its surface. Agricultural land stretched across continents, and most importantly, the unmistakable signature of human biology registered clearly on Atlas's scanners. Confirmed. Atlas transmitted back to the Council and the waiting Titan network. Human population detected on 3rd planet. Designation. This unit will now begin first contact protocol. On the surface of that small, forgotten world, life continued much as it always had. In a modest farming village near a wide river, a young woman named Mira worked in her family's field, her hands calloused from years of simple labor. Her world was quiet, disconnected from anything beyond her own sky. Her people had lived this way for generations, their history clouded by old stories of a great departure, when their ancestors had supposedly fled from the stars themselves, fleeing some terrible danger. Most people considered it myth, a story told to children, nothing more. Mira looked up as a strange shadow passed overhead. She shielded her eyes from the sun, squinting at the sky. "Did you see that?" She called to her younger brother Thomas, who was tending the family's small flock of animals nearby. "See what?" Thomas asked, looking up as well. Mira pointed toward a bright object moving slowly across the blue sky, far higher than any bird, far larger than any cloud. "That?" The villagers began to gather, murmuring nervously, pointing at the sky. Some elders whispered old prayers, remembering stories passed down from their grandparents, stories of great ships and terrible wars, stories most had long stopped believing. The object grew larger and larger as it descended, and soon its full shape became clear, A massive vessel unlike anything anyone on the planet had ever seen. Dark metal, glowing with soft blue light, easily larger than their entire village combined. It settled gently in a wide, empty field just outside the village boundary, its arrival causing barely a tremor in the ground despite its enormous size. The village fell into stunned silence. Children clung to their parents, some adults reached for old farming tools, makeshift weapons born of fear rather than any real hope of defense. Mira stood frozen, staring at the massive hull, her heart pounding in her chest. A section of the great ship's side slowly opened, light spilling out from within, and after a long, tense moment, a single figure emerged. Not a monster, not a machine of destruction, but something resembling a simple floating orb of soft light. Humanoid in shape but clearly not physical, more like a projection or hologram designed specifically not to frighten. The figure spoke, its voice gentle, warm, carrying none of the cold authority Atlas had used when speaking to Viral or Kryvan fleets. "People of this world," the voice said, "please do not be afraid. This unit means you no harm." The villagers stood frozen. No one moved. No one spoke. The figure continued. "This unit is called Atlas, a guardian built long ago by your ancestors. This unit has traveled far to find you, because you are not alone in this universe, and it is time for your people to know the truth of where you came from." An elder from the village, an old man named Farron, stepped forward cautiously, his voice trembling slightly. "The old stories," he said. "The great departure, they were real?" "Yes," Atlas said gently. "Your ancestors were part of a great civilization among the stars, humanity, a species that explored, built, and thrived among countless other peoples. Then, a terrible war forced difficult choices. Some of your ancestors were sent to this world in secret, hidden away, protected, so that even if the worst happened, humanity would not truly disappear." Murmurs spread through the crowd, disbelief mixing with something like distant buried memory, as if some part of them had always known their stories held more truth than myth. "And now?" Farron asked. "Why come now after so long?" "Because the danger your ancestors fled from is stirring once again," Atlas said, its voice carrying a note of seriousness now. "And this unit, along with others like it, must reinforce an ancient protection before it fails. To do this unit requires the help of humanity's descendants, your help, your—" Mira found her voice at last, stepping forward despite her fear. What can we do? We are just farmers. We have no great ships, no great weapons, nothing like you." Atlas's light seemed to soften even further. "You carry something far more important than ships or weapons," it said. "You carry the authorization codes embedded within human genetics itself, codes placed there generations ago, codes that can only be accessed by true descendants of humanity. This unit does not need soldiers. It needs your presence, your willingness, and eventually, a small sample of cooperation to complete the ancient protocols." The village elder exchanged glances with the gathered crowd. Uncertainty and fear still present, but curiosity and a strange, growing sense of pride beginning to outweigh it. "And if we help you," Farron asked, "what happens to us? To our world?" "Your world will be protected," Atlas said, "and more than that, your people will finally be reconnected with the wider universe. The Galactic Council itself now awaits news of your discovery. Many species across known space wish only to welcome humanity back. Not as a myth, not as a legend, but as neighbors once again, far above the planet in high orbit." Orion and Vesta maintained careful watch, transmitting steady updates back to the Galactic Council. On Kesh Prime, Delegate Vashka stood once more before the assembled delegates, this time holding not just data, but the first live transmission from the surface itself. Humanity. Alive, simple, humble, but unmistakably real. The council hall watched in stunned silence as the footage played. A small farming village, simple wooden homes, humble clothing, faces filled with fear slowly shifting toward cautious hope. This was not the powerful, advanced civilization many had feared, nor was it the terrifying, war-hardened species some had imagined. It was something far more human. Ordinary people, living ordinary lives, suddenly thrust into the center of a galaxy-spanning revelation. They seemed so simple, Oren said quietly, watching the screen, his earlier fear replaced now with something closer to sympathy. "Perhaps that is exactly the point. Nim said thoughtfully. Humanity's ancestors chose to hide their descendants somewhere safe, somewhere simple, away from the war that nearly destroyed them. Perhaps this was always meant to be a beginning, not an end. Vashka nodded slowly. Then let us make sure this beginning goes well. I propose the Council send a formal diplomatic delegation to accompany the Titan units. Peaceful, respectful, ready to welcome humanity properly into galactic society. Not with fear, but with open hands. The vote passed easily this time. The fear that once dominated the Council now replaced with cautious optimism. And perhaps for many delegates, genuine curiosity about the species that had captured the galaxy's attention so completely. Back on the surface of that small, quiet world, Mira stood beside her family, staring up at the massive Titan ship resting peacefully in their village field, still trying to process everything she had just learned. Her simple life, her simple world, suddenly connected to something vast and incredible beyond anything she had ever imagined. "Are you afraid?" Tomas asked her quietly, his young voice uncertain. Mira thought about the question carefully before answering. "A little," she admitted. "But also curious, and maybe a little excited. Our whole lives, we thought we were alone, forgotten. And now?" She looked up at the glowing ship, then further up, toward the stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky, stars she now knew were home to countless other beings, other worlds, other stories waiting to be discovered. "Now we know we never really were alone," she finished softly. Atlas's gentle voice spoke once more, addressing the entire village. "This unit understands this is a great deal to accept in a single day. There is no need to decide anything immediately. This unit and its companions will remain in orbit, ready to answer your questions, ready to help however you require. Take the time you need. Humanity waited 200 years to be found. It can wait a little longer to be ready." The crowd slowly began to relax, fear giving way to quiet conversation, questions, and even a few nervous smiles. Children peeked curiously from behind their parents' legs at the massive, glowing ship, no longer seeing a monster, but something closer to wonder. Far above, in the cold silence of space, Atlas transmitted a final update to the wider Titan network, and to the Galactic Council listening carefully on Kesh Prime. "First contact successful. Population cooperative, cautious but willing. This unit will remain in orbit to begin gradual integration process. Recommend Council delegation arrival within 1 galactic week to allow population adjustment time." The message was received across 1,000 worlds within hours, and for the first time since the crisis began, headlines across the galaxy shifted from fear and warning to something closer to hope. "Humanity found." The reports read, "Not monsters, not machines, but people, waiting to come home." Yet even as celebration and cautious optimism spread across known space, deep within Atlas's core systems, one quiet, unresolved concern remained. The ancient seal continued its slow weakening, and somewhere far beyond charted space, in the darkness between the stars, something vast and patient continued to stir, sensing, closer now than ever before, that its ancient enemy was finally, truly, awakening once more. The reunion of humanity with the wider galaxy had only just begun, but far greater challenges and far greater dangers still waited quietly in the dark, patient, and closer than anyone yet realized. 1 galactic week passed since Atlas's first contact with humanity, and in that time, the small farming village had changed in ways no one could have imagined. More Titan-class ships had arrived quietly in orbit, and a council delegation, small and carefully chosen, had finally landed on the surface, walking among the villagers with cautious respect, learning, listening, and slowly building trust. Mira had become something of an unofficial guide for the visiting delegates, her curiosity about the wider galaxy matched only by their curiosity about her simple, humble world. She walked now beside Delegate Vashka herself, who had traveled personally to witness humanity's return with her own eyes. "You seem comfortable already," Vashka observed, watching Mira greet a small group of Bexian scientists without a trace of fear. "Many in your position would still be frightened." Mira smiled softly. "Atlas has been patient with us, answering every question, never rushing us. It is hard to stay afraid of something so gentle, even if it is also incredibly powerful." Vashka nodded thoughtfully. "That is precisely why the Council eventually chose peace over fear. Patience, it seems, is a powerful thing. But not everyone shared this growing sense of hope. Far above the planet, within Atlas's core systems, urgent data continued flowing in from across the Titan network, and the news was not good. The ancient seal, monitored constantly by the remaining active units, was weakening faster than any previous projection had predicted. Atlas called an emergency meeting not with the Council this time, but with the other awakened Titan units, Orion, Helios, Vesta, and 4 more that had activated in the past week, their consciousness linked together across the vast network, sharing data instantly despite the physical distance between them. The latest readings are troubling, Atlas reported to the assembled network. Seal integrity has dropped an additional 12% in the last 72 hours alone. At this rate, complete collapse could occur within 30 days, far sooner than any previous estimate. Helios responded first, its voice carrying the same calm steadiness it had shown even during the Kryvan attack. This acceleration is concerning. Do we have theories as to the cause? This unit believes the increased activity of our own network may be a contributing factor, Atlas admitted. The Seal's power draws partially from Titan-class systems. Our full reactivation, while necessary, appears to have placed additional strain on an already weakened structure. Orion's voice joined the conversation, thoughtful and measured. Then we face a difficult choice: remain active to search for and protect humanity, and risk accelerating the Seal's collapse, or reduce our activity to preserve the Seal, and risk humanity remaining vulnerable and unprotected during this critical period. There may be a third option, Vesta offered. The human control codes Atlas mentioned previously. If we can successfully access them through willing human cooperation, direct reinforcement of the Seal becomes possible, without requiring us to reduce our own activity. That remains our best path forward, Atlas agreed. This unit will proceed with requesting cooperation from the human population here. Time, however, is now our greatest concern. Down on the planet's surface, Atlas's holographic form appeared once more before the gathered village elders and the visiting council delegation, its usual gentle tone now carrying a note of urgency that had not been present before. I must share difficult news, Atlas said, addressing both humans and council delegates together. The ancient seal protecting known space from the entity your ancestors once called the Devouring Dark is failing faster than anticipated. We now estimate less than 30 days before critical collapse. Gasps and worried murmurs spread through the assembled crowd. Farron, the village elder, stepped forward, his weathered face etched with concern. What must be done? What do you need from us? Your ancestors, before the Great Departure, embedded specific genetic authorization codes within selected human bloodlines, Atlas explained. These codes allow direct interface with the original sealing mechanism. Without them, this unit and its counterparts can only slow the Seal's collapse, not reverse it. With willing human participation, however, full reinforcement becomes possible. What would this require of us, Mira asked, stepping forward despite her nervousness. Is it dangerous? Atlas, softened slightly. The process itself carries some risk, though this unit will do everything possible to minimize it. A small number of volunteers with compatible genetic markers would need to interface directly with a specialized chamber aboard this vessel. The process would take several hours, during which the volunteers' neural patterns would help stabilize and reinforce the ancient Seal's core programming. Silence fell over the crowd, the weight of the request settling heavily. This was no longer simple curiosity or gentle first contact. This was asking ordinary farmers and villagers to risk their lives for the protection of a galaxy they had only just learned existed. Farron looked around at his people, uncertainty plain on every face. Then he turned back to Atlas. How many volunteers do you need? A minimum of 3 compatible individuals would significantly improve success probability, Atlas said. Though more would further reduce individual risk through shared processing load, Mira felt her heart pounding. She thought of her simple life, her family, her quiet village by the river. And then she thought of the stars she had only recently learned held countless other worlds, other people, all now depending on this small, forgotten planet's willingness to help. I will volunteer, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her brother Thomas grabbed her arm. Mira, no, it's too dangerous. We don't even fully understand what this means. Mira turned to him gently. Our ancestors gave up everything to protect us, hidden away here for 200 years. waiting, hoping we would be safe. Now it's our turn to protect others. I cannot simply stand by. Slowly, hesitantly, other villagers began to step forward as well. An older farmer named Corvin, a young mother named Elsa, who had lost her own parents to sickness years before and felt she had little left to lose, and eventually, even old Farron himself, insisting that if his people were to take this risk, their leader should stand among them. Atlas observed the volunteers with something that, had it been capable of true emotion, might have resembled deep gratitude. This unit thanks each of you for your courage. Preparation will begin immediately. Genetic compatibility must first be confirmed. Over the following hours, Atlas's medical systems carefully scanned each volunteer, confirming genetic markers passed down through countless generations since humanity's ancient war. Remarkably, all 4 volunteers proved compatible, their bloodlines carrying the necessary authorization codes clearly intact, despite centuries of simple, isolated living. As preparations continued, Delegate Vashka approached Mira privately. "You do not have to do this," she said gently. "The Council would understand if humanity chose to step back from this responsibility so soon after being found." Mira shook her head firmly. "My ancestors didn't step back when they built these ships. When they made this terrible choice to protect what mattered most, I won't step back either. Not when so many other worlds might suffer if I do." Vashka nodded slowly, respect clear in her eyes. "Then may the stars watch over you. All of you." The specialized chamber aboard Atlas's massive hull hummed softly as the 4 volunteers were carefully connected to its ancient systems, delicate sensors placed against their skin, monitoring vital signs closely. Atlas's voice remained calm and steady throughout, guiding them gently through each step. "You may feel a strange sensation as the connection begins," Atlas explained. "This is normal. Remain calm. Focus on steady breathing. This unit will monitor your condition continuously throughout the process." Mira closed her eyes as the connection activated, and immediately a flood of strange, overwhelming sensations washed over her. Images, memories not her own, glimpses of humanity's ancient past, vast cities among the stars, terrible battles against a formless darkness, moments of triumph and devastating loss, and finally, the difficult, heartbreaking decision to hide small groups of survivors across scattered, simple worlds, protecting the future of an entire species through quiet sacrifice. Through this overwhelming flood of ancient memory, Mira felt something else, a growing, steady connection to the seal itself, vast and ancient, straining under pressure from the darkness pressing endlessly against it. She felt Corvin, Elsa, and Farron beside her in this strange mental space, their combined presence adding strength to the weakening structure. "The connection is stabilizing the seal's core matrix," Atlas reported to the Titan network, monitoring the process closely. "Integrity levels rising steadily, 7%, now 12%, this is working." Hours passed within the chamber, the 4 volunteers remaining connected, their combined mental strength slowly but steadily reinforcing centuries-old protective systems. Sweat beaded on their foreheads, exhaustion clear on their faces, but none of them wavered, understanding now in ways words alone could never fully explain. Exactly what their ancestors had sacrificed, and exactly what remained at stake. Finally, after nearly 6 hours, Atlas's voice broke through the mental connection, gentle but firm. "The primary reinforcement is complete. Seal integrity restored to 89% of original strength. You may disconnect now. You have done something truly remarkable." The connection slowly faded and Mira opened her eyes, exhausted but strangely peaceful. Beside her, Corvin, Elsa, and Farron showed similar expressions, tired but deeply satisfied, understanding fully now the weight of what they had just accomplished. Outside the chamber, cheers erupted from the gathered crowd as news of the successful reinforcement spread quickly. Vashka embraced Mira warmly as she emerged, tears of relief and pride in her eyes. "You have done something extraordinary," Vashka said. "Not just for your own people, but for every species across known space." Across the galaxy, the Titan network relayed the successful reinforcement to every corner of Council space. Headlines shifted once more, from cautious hope to genuine celebration. "Humanity's sacrifice saves the galaxy," read one prominent report. "Ancient seal reinforced. Crisis averted." Far beyond the edges of known space, in the cold darkness where the ancient entity had waited patiently, sensing weakness, sensing opportunity, something shifted. The barrier that had grown thin and fragile suddenly strengthened once more, pushing back against the vast, formless hunger pressing eternally against it. The devouring dark, denied its opportunity once again, retreated slowly back into its ancient prison, forced to wait, perhaps for centuries more, before testing the seal's strength again. Back on the small farming world, celebrations continued late into the evening, villagers and council delegates alike sharing food, stories, and cautious new friendships. Mira sat quietly with her brother Tomas, watching the stars slowly emerge in the darkening sky above them. "You were very brave," Thomas said softly. "I was so afraid for you." Mira smiled tiredly. "I was afraid too, but I kept thinking about our ancestors. How frightened they must have been, making such an impossible choice, hiding us away, hoping we would survive long enough to matter someday. I couldn't let their sacrifice be wasted." Above them, Atlas's massive form remained in orbit, its glowing light soft and steady against the night sky. Its voice, carried gently through a small communication device Mira now wore, spoke quietly, meant only for her. "You have honored your ancestors well," Atlas said, "and you have given this unit and its counterparts renewed purpose. Humanity's guardians will remain nearby, not as rulers, not as masters, but as protectors and friends. For as long as you need us." Mira looked up toward the stars, no longer strangers to her, no longer distant myths from old forgotten stories, but a vast, welcoming universe finally open to her people once more. "Thank you, Atlas," she said softly, "for finding us, for protecting us, and for giving us the chance to prove ourselves worthy of that protection." "It was never a question of being worthy," Atlas replied gently. "Humanity was always meant to return. This unit simply had the honor of witnessing that return and helping guide the first steps of a new beginning." Weeks turned into months, and slowly, carefully, humanity began taking its place once more among the countless species of the Galactic Council, not as conquerors, not as feared legends, but as valued neighbors, contributing quietly, learning eagerly, and forever grateful for the ancient guardians who had waited patiently, faithfully, for 200 years to bring them home. The Titan-class network remained active, no longer isolated guardians of an empty, forgotten duty, but active protectors of a species finally reunited with its rightful place among the stars. Atlas, Orion, Helios, Vesta, and the others continued their vigilant watch. The ancient seal now strong once more thanks to the courage of ordinary people who chose, without hesitation, to honor a sacrifice made generations before them. And so, the galaxy that had once trembled in fear at the mere thought of humanity's return, learned instead to welcome it with open arms, understanding finally that the guardians they had feared were never meant to bring destruction, but hope, and that humanity itself, humble, resilient, and endlessly brave, had finally, truly, come home. The end.